When I was a kid, you had these ubiquitous TV commercials pushing a product called Geritol. I mean, just about every during the daytime, every other TV show always had an advertisement for this Geritol product. What was Geritol? Geritol was basically it was for the tagline for Geritol was helps. What was it? Was it helps tired blood or something like that. In other words, basically it was an iron supplement, had a couple of extra vitamins in it. It fell out of favor many years ago, but this was a big thing. 50, 60 years ago, Geritol was ubiquitous, which brings me to the topic I wanted to talk today about, which is iron. When it comes to bodybuilders and athletes, there's not much attention paid to iron, but iron is a very important trace mineral. The main function of iron, it has many functions, just like other minerals. Iron functions as what they call a coenzyme. In other words, it's needed, minerals generally are needed to activate enzymes in the body. And in other words, vitamins are also coenzymes, but without minerals, vitamins won't work. Iron also is known to activate certain enzymes in the body, which I'll get to in a minute. But the main function, the most familiar function of iron, is to form part of a protein pigment that circulates in the blood called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin carries oxygen to cells. And obviously, since oxygen is absolutely essential to life, if you don't have enough hemoglobin or enough iron to produce hemoglobin, you get a condition called anemia. Now, the thing about this thing has a lot of connections, so to speak. It's not as simple as it seems, but I'll talk about some of these things. The entire topic of iron metabolism is kind of complex. It would be too much to talk about in one video. So I'm going to do a article on iron in my Applied Metabolics publication. I just wanted in this video to give an overview of iron, especially as it pertains to athletes and bodybuilders. So if you don't get enough iron, the main symptom is anemia because of the lack of hemoglobin oxygen carrying. In the muscles have their own form of hemoglobin called myoglobin, which supplies oxygen to muscles, absolutely needed for energy metabolism, muscle contraction, a lot of other things. So a lack of iron can adversely affect both athletic performance and training in the gym. Because if you're lacking iron, you're going to have, for example, you're going to tend to have like heavy breathing, feels like you're not getting enough oxygen. Because of the lack of oxygen delivery, there's going to be a lot of fatigue, a couple of other symptoms. This, of course, is anemia. Now, people who are familiar with food supplements might notice that in the last couple of years, they've had iron-free mineral supplements, and a lot of vitamin mineral preparations don't contain iron. Now, why would this be so? If iron is an essential trace mineral, why would these supplements not contain iron? Well, this is directed mainly at men, because it turns out that men recirculate their iron. Your red blood cells, which contain iron, they basically break down every 120 days. And when they break down, 90% of the iron contained in those erythrocytes or red blood cells are reabsorbed by the body. So what that means, broadly speaking, is that men tend to recirculate their iron. So for men, getting a iron deficiency is extremely unlikely unless they have some sort of bleeding disease, something that's causing them to lose excessive amounts of blood. It could be internal bleeding, something like that they might not even be aware of. That can cause anemia. It can cause because the loss of blood equals a loss of iron. Now, it's a different situation for women. Women, because of their menstrual functions, lose blood every month. They are far more prone to iron deficiency anemia, as it's called. And another problem with women is that they tend to avoid the best iron-containing foods, which is animal protein foods, particularly red meat. You have to understand there's two types of iron, basically. There's what they call heme iron and non-heme iron. Heme iron is the type found in let's say, red meat and animal proteins. This has a absorption. This is absorbed 25% greater than non-heme iron. Non-heme iron is found in vegetables, fruits, all these other, let's say, non-animal foods. They contain heme iron. Now, it doesn't mean that heme iron. Well, let me backtrack. Besides the fact that heme iron is a bit harder to absorb compared, non-heme iron is a bit harder to absorb than heme iron. Again, heme iron is the animal protein iron. Not only is it harder to absorb, but you have the additional problem in a lot of these plant foods. You have what they call anti-nutrient factors, such as phytic acid, oxalic acid. These substances, especially in raw vegetables, they combine. They kind of lock on to the non-heme iron in the in these vegetable or plant foods, and they further prevent the absorption of non-heme iron. So what this adds up to is, let's say a woman who doesn't like to eat heavy protein foods like meat, if she depends on her iron from strictly plant foods, because of the menstrual functions, the loss of blood every month, there's a good chance that she could develop iron deficiency anemia. In fact, a large percentage of women are walking around, they're feeling tired, feeling listless, they have brain fog. They're not sure what it is, and very often it is, believe it or not, iron deficiency anemia, which can be easily solved through several mechanisms. One such mechanism is the fact that, well, let me also further add, to make it complete, there's other nutritional substances that are very beneficial, but they unfortunately also kind of lock on to iron, and a lot of these things are also found in plant foods. These substances are, like I say, very beneficial, like polyphenol compounds that exist, let's say, in coffee and tea and various fruits and vegetables. They also lock on to iron and cause it to be excreted from the body. Now, that's not a problem for men because, the men have their own recirculating iron, but for women who depend on non-heme iron food sources like vegetables, it could be a huge problem. Now, here's the good news. The good news is vitamin C, ascorbic acid, will actually convert non-heme iron into heme iron, and it'll also completely block the influence of all those other nutrients in affecting iron, let's say, absorption, such as the polyphenols and the other compounds. Vitamin C will cause the conversion of non-heme iron into heme iron, and therefore negate all those outside influencers that interfere with iron uptake. Now, as I said, it usually the problem with iron is actually a problem, especially in men, of having too much rather than too little iron. Now, there's a certain genetically based disease called hemochromatosis, which involves a tremendously increased storage of iron in the liver. Now, this causes a number of serious health problems, including it can cause liver cirrhosis, it can cause skeletal muscle damage, it can cause cellular damage, all kinds of things. It's a genetic disease. It can be treated. Obviously, these people who have this hemochromatosis should avoid eating anything containing iron. Now, some people inherit one gene for hemochromatosis. Those people also have to be careful because they're going to absorb and store iron in a much greater amount compared to people without hemochromatosis. Now, iron is stored in the body and kind of transports in the blood attached to proteins. The storage protein for iron is called ferritin. Now, that's how they measure the iron levels in your body. There's two ways. One is to measure the ferritin, and the other one is to measure hemoglobin. That gives an indication of whether you're iron, whether you have enough iron in the body or whether you're iron deficient. Now, there's another protein that carries iron in the blood called transferrin. Now, this is an important point. As long as iron is securely attached to the transferrin or transferrin is what they call a glycoprotein. It's basically composed of amino acids and a carbohydrate. Anyway, the transferrin kind of locks on to iron. It transports it in the blood to the cells where it's used to make hemoglobin and other purposes. And of course, ferritin is a protein that also stores iron, where the iron is secured to the ferritin protein. Now, as long as iron is secured to these proteins, it's not going to cause any problems unless you have hemochromatosis or some sort of genetic tendency to store extra iron. But when now iron that, let's say, breaks free from transferrins, what they call free iron, is very reactive. It reacts with oxygen, and it produces tremendous amounts of what they call reactive oxygen species, or free radicals. These things are known to damage cell membranes. They could inhibit exercise recovery, and they've shown that also the excess iron they has a connection with increased cardiovascular disease and cancer. There's some sort of connection between increased iron, free iron. This is free iron, meaning unbound iron, and colon cancer. Just to use one example of cancer that's related to iron. Now, like I say, the men, but there's another school of thought that notes that athletes, especially endurance athletes, and people involved in very high intensity training, can actually lose more iron than usual. In the case of the endurance athletes, you have something involved called foot strike hemolysis. Let's say you have a marathon runner, ultra marathon runner. When their foot hits the ground hard, even if they're wearing good running shoes, it can actually destroy red blood cells and cause them to break down rapidly, which releases the iron. They can actually wind up with a type of anemia. Then there's something called sports anemia, which is not really a true anemia. In sports anemia, when you work out hard, or when you're involved in endurance activities, or even very intense training for extended periods, your blood volume increases. In other words, the amount of water in the blood increases to increase the delivery of blood to the working muscles. When this expansion of blood volume occurs, it kind of dilutes the level of hemoglobin in the blood. So it appears that a person has anemia as judged by lower hemoglobin levels, but they don't really have anemia. In other words, it's just an expansion of the blood volume, a temporary expansion that dilutes, makes it look like they have lower hemoglobin levels than they really do. So they call that sports anemia. It's not a true anemia. Now, there again, men, they've removed iron supplements. Like I say, a lot of supplements that are sold today, especially directed at men, are iron-free because of the fear of this association of iron with cardiovascular disease, cancer, and other things, and the fact that men recirculate their iron in their bodies. Like I say, 90% of broken degraded red blood cells, the iron is recirculated. So, what it boils down to is, unless a man has some sort of bleeding disease or is losing blood for some reason, he doesn't need any iron. That's why they developed iron-free supplements. And the secondary reason is because they're afraid that iron, too much iron, has oxidative effects in the body. In fact, there's other research showing that free iron is involved in can actually accelerate the progression of certain degenerative brain diseases, such as Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease. Again, because free iron, unbound iron, promotes excessive oxidation, which causes cell damage, and in the brain it causes damage to brain cells or neurons. So there's a danger of excess iron. And another mineral that works with iron in helping to develop red blood cells is copper. Now, copper has the same problem. Copper is attached to a protein called ceruloplasmin. As long as it's attached to its protein, it does nothing but good things. But copper has a tendency to dissociate from its protein carrier. Now it becomes free copper, and now you have the same situation as iron, where copper is very reactive with oxygen and can cause cellular damage and brain damage. Now, you have to understand that that iron, it's not a bad thing to get iron from food. Taking it in a supplemental form for men is highly questionable. For women, I think it's a very good idea. In other words, if women are depending solely on vegetables or plant foods as their source of iron, they should either take vitamin C, extra vitamin C, even if the vegetables contain natural vitamin C, they should take a little extra vitamin C when they eat their plant foods to ensure that the non-heme iron in the vegetables is converted into the usable heme iron, and the vitamin C, more importantly, will prevent those anti-nutrient substances and the nutritive substances like polyphenols and substances found, let's say, in coffee. Green tea has EGCG. These things are all iron chelators. They lock onto iron and cause it to be excreted. That's good for men, not good for women, because women lose that iron every month. So if women take their vitamin C with the vegetables, it completely blocks all those effects and it converts the non-heme iron into heme iron. So it's almost like they're eating animal protein foods. They're getting the most usable form of iron. Now, iron is important for exercise. I don't want you to think it's not important. It's not only because it's needed for hemoglobin and oxygen delivery. Obviously, oxygen delivery is very important because that's basically that's the spark of energy. If you don't have optimal oxygen delivery, the electron transport system in the mitochondria cannot produce ATP, and that ATP is the elemental source of energy. And because of the lack of iron involved with the electron transport system, the mitochondria, that's one of the reasons why when you're anemic, when you have iron anemia, you feel very tired and listless, and you have brain fog because your body is not producing energy efficiently. Another reason why you probably feel tired and listless is because iron is involved in the production of thyroid hormone. Iron, remember I said earlier, iron acts as a coenzyme. In other words, it stimulates enzyme activity. In the thyroid, it stimulates an enzyme called thyroid peroxidase, which is needed to convert the less active T4 thyroid hormone into the more active T3 thyroid. So, in other words, having sufficient iron optimizes your thyroid production, which will also add to energy production. So, another bad thing about excess iron, by the way, is the excess oxidation that results, and this is a little known fact, what I'm about to tell you now. When you have excess iron, particularly in men, as I said, it's unlikely to happen in women because of the blood loss. This is more specific for men. But when men have excess iron, if let's say they're taking too many supplements that contain iron, or for example, right? If they have too much iron, the oxidative effects of iron stimulates a major catabolic pathway in muscle called the ubiquitin pathway that actually promotes the breakdown of muscle. This is important for anybody who's trying to build muscle. Excess iron will actually interfere with muscle growth and strength gains. That's another reason. Now, there's an interesting compound produced in the body they discovered a couple of years ago called hepcidin. Now, what hepcidin does is it regulates iron uptake. This is the main gut regulator. This is what determines how much iron actually gets absorbed, right? Now, here's an interesting fact. Testosterone basically downregulates hepcidin. In other words, it kind of like limits its activity. So as a consequence, when men, let's say, are on testosterone therapy, or let's say you're taking testosterone as a drug or anabolic steroids, which are testosterone analogs, if you take the testosterone, you downgrade hepcidin, and as a result, you increase iron uptake. These men, I mean, it makes no difference whether you're taking a separate iron supplement. If you are, it's even worse. But even if you're eating normal iron-containing foods like red meat and a lot of animal protein foods, the iron in those foods is going to be absorbed a lot more because of the downgrade of hepcidin caused by testosterone or anabolic steroids. Now, what does that mean? Well, there's a condition called erythrocytosis where it's marked by an elevated hematocrit. Hematocrit is the concentration of red blood cells in the blood. If the concentration of red blood cells gets too thick, it can cause not only clotting, excessive faster clotting mechanisms, but it can also increase the risk of stuff like a stroke. It's considered it could cause heart problems. Elevated hematocrit is very dangerous. Now, a lot of men, when they get on, not all, but a lot of men, when they get on testosterone replacement therapy, if they use doses of TRT, especially this is, almost always applies to the injected form of testosterone, not the topical forms. If they use injected forms of testosterone at a dose of 150 milligrams a week or more, about half of the men who start testosterone replacement therapy will, because of the testosterone effect on hepcidin, will actually show higher iron levels in their body, which could be problematic. Now, what these men need to do, there's two things that you need. The first thing, there's good news. The first thing is that, well, if you show elevated hematocrit, if let's say you're on testosterone therapy, if it's pretty high, if it's over, I don't remember what the cutoff, if it's something like over 58 or something like that, you can immediately cure yourself by donating blood. Donating blood immediately lowers the hematocrit. Problem solved. That's one way of doing it. Another way, if your hematocrit is, let's say, mildly elevated, just maybe 2 points above normal, what they found in recent studies is after about 3 or 4, maybe a maximum of 6 months, your body adjusts the hematocrit automatically, so it no longer becomes a problem. Your hematocrit will go down by itself after about 4 to 6 months. You don't have to do anything. But again, if it really, when you start testosterone replacement therapy, again using an injected form of testosterone like enanthate or cypionate, if the total testosterone really elevates fast, I mean the hematocrit elevates fast, then you might want to consider undergoing the blood donation, because again that eliminates the problem. It's not going to really adversely affect. It takes a little bit of time to replace the red blood cells that you lost, but it's in most cases, unless you're an ultra endurance runner, it's not going to adversely affect your workouts, anything like that. And donating blood, because of the actual loss of iron, actually is very beneficial. That's another thing a lot of people overlook. Donating iron is actually beneficial to men's health because, most men, again, if anything, they're carrying too much iron rather than too little. So I think that about covers it for iron. Again, iron is an important nutrient. The only time men need to, let me just sum up by saying, the only time that men need to consider taking a iron supplement is if for some reason they undergo a lab test and they're shown to be, let's say, low in hemoglobin, low in ferritin, these measures of iron storage and use of iron in the body, then they might have to take an iron supplement. Women generally probably, if they're relying, this is an important point for women, if they're relying exclusively on plant foods as their source of iron, again, either take vitamin C with the plant foods, or you could bypass the whole thing by taking a supplement, either a vitamin mineral that contains iron or a standalone iron supplement. Now, the good news for women about that is if they, let's say they're diagnosed as having iron deficiency anemia. Well, the more recent studies show you don't need to take iron every day. You can take it every third day will be enough to restore the iron levels in a woman's body and cure the anemia. You don't have to take it every day. Now, the best forms of iron supplements to take, whether you're a man or a woman, is what they call ferrous iron. It comes in different forms. There's all different chemical names, but look for the word ferrous. Why? Because the other types of iron supplement that are not ferrous tend to cause really bad constipation. You don't want to have to deal with that. So if you have to use an iron supplement, make sure the name of the iron supplement, the generic name, has the word ferrous in that. That's a more absorbable form of iron. It's kind of basically heme iron. It's the more absorbable form of iron. And again, I don't want people to get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with non-heme iron that's found in vegetables and plant foods. It's just harder to absorb. As I said, it has about, heme iron is 2.5 times greater absorption than non-heme iron. But again, this could be easily dealt with just by taking a little vitamin C with the extra vitamin C, which also knocks out the anti-nutrients that inhibit iron absorption. So, you can have your vegetables and not worry about it. So I think that's about it for iron. Again, if you're whether a man or a woman, I don't think that iron deficiency is likely to affect men who are involved in just normal weight training or bodybuilding workouts. Workouts that last anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. That's not long enough or even intense enough to cause a considerable loss of iron, because you do lose some iron from sweat, but I don't think that's enough to really lead to a iron deficiency situation. I don't think, again, that I think that it's a good idea, unless you really need it, as judged by lab tests. Men really should avoid iron supplements. If you're going to use a multi-mineral, like I do, I take a multi-mineral. I take an iron-free formula. It has no iron in it. The vitamin mineral I use is iron-free. So I avoid direct iron supplements, because I know, as far as I know, I hope not, I'm not having any internal bleeding. I'm not losing any blood, so I don't need to take outside iron, because my body recirculates the iron. So again, women, either take the vitamin C with your plant foods, or simplify it by taking a little extra iron in a supplement form. You don't have to worry about iron. And above all, this is very important. Too much iron is even worse than too little iron. It causes tremendous damage in the body, and it can cause brain damage that can lead to dementia, heart disease, cancer. So I'll leave it at that. And just so you know, daily requirement, or the daily suggested intake of iron for men is only 8 milligrams a day. And of the 8 milligrams a day, if it's heme iron, you only absorb 15% of that amount. The requirement for women, because of the blood loss, is 18 milligrams a day. So as long as these are adults, by the way, these are adults age 19 and over. So if you're getting that amount of iron a day, and it's very easy to do. Like I say, if you're eating any type of meat or even vegetables, I mean, it's not hard to get iron. It's even in eggs. It's all over the place. So it's very unlikely that, unless you're on some sort of crazy diet where you eat only one food, getting an iron deficiency from not eating certain foods is very, very unlikely. So I'll leave it at that. If you want more information on nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research, ergogenic aids, hormone therapy, supplement science, which supplements work, which ones don't. I am not involved with any supplement company. Unlike some people on YouTube, I'm not selling my own supplements like one guy does, who shall remain unnamed to protect the not so innocent. This guy is a doctor who I'm laughing about this because, it's sad that people are ignorant and don't realize this kind of stuff. This clown sells a vitamin mineral that he supposedly designed. It doesn't even contain some of the minimal daily requirements. I mean, the government standard for vitamins and minerals is very low. They basically just tell you to take enough to prevent a deficiency, and with a little bit extra. But his vitamin mineral doesn't even have the minimal amounts. He throws in stuff that is not required in human nutrition at all, like betaine. I mean, here's the worst part. This vitamin mineral that he sells probably cost him, I estimate, probably about 50 cents to make, and he charges $50 for it. Now, why am I talking about this guy? Because he has a reputation where he has a huge following, probably 20 times more than I have, because people think he's honest, because he talks about studies. This guy's a fraud. Don't fall for I said this in past videos. Don't fall for the fallacy that because somebody has an advanced degree, like this guy has an MD degree, he got it in New Zealand, where anybody can go to medical school. It's not like the United States, where you have to be a brilliant student with straight A's, and you have to pass a medical college admission test, which is very difficult to get admitted into medical school. In New Zealand, any Tom, Dick, or Harry can go to medical school. It doesn't mean a thing. But anyway, people look at guys like him and other people on YouTube because they have these advanced degrees. They take everything they say as gospel truth. That is a huge, huge mistake. A lot of these, I'm not saying everything these people talk about is wrong, but a lot of it is wrong, and a lot of it is for self-aggrandizement to make themselves money. Because sooner or later, these guys, every one of them comes out with a product. Whether it's a food supplement, some of them sell T-shirts, some of them are just shills. They might not have their own product, but they're shilling for other supplement companies, like these so-called longevity supplements. There's a couple of these guys that do videos on anti-aging, and they're basically pushing the hell out of certain companies that sell so-called longevity supplements, and they're getting kickbacks. They're getting money from them. They're not giving you the whole truth. You'll never find that in my Applied Metabolics, and you'll never find that in my videos. I'm 100% bullshit free, and I give you the whole truth based on my over 6 decades of experience and constant study. So if you're not a subscriber to my video channel, this video channel, please by all means subscribe. It's free. I come out with a new video every Tuesday. And if you want much more in-depth information, where you basically know everything there is to be known about any particular topic relating to nutrition, exercise, or health, by all means, subscribe to my Applied Metabolics at www.appliedmetabolics.com. I guarantee you will learn. And by the way, in case you're wondering, it's not written in a highly technical style. It's written at a grade level of about probably the 6th grade. In other words, if you got as far as the 6th grade, you'll be able to understand everything in Applied Metabolics. Anytime I use a technical term, I immediately translate it for you, so you don't have to reach for a medical dictionary. It's very understandable and very clear. I know how to write. I've been a writer for going on a half a century now. I've written thousands and thousands of articles. I've written for major bodybuilding magazines. I have the experience. This is something that you won't find in other digital publications. A lot of these people are just graduate students. They don't have any background in writing. It's very difficult to understand their writing. Their material is good. I mean, it's scientifically accurate. It's just very hard to understand unless you have a science background. You won't need that with Applied Metabolics. So again, subscribe today, www.appliedmetabolics.com. I'm thinking now that somebody might say, hey, Brainham, you're a hypocrite. You just criticize a bunch of people for selling products along with their videos, and what are you doing here? You're pushing your digital publication. Aren't you doing the same thing? Not really. I'm not doing the same thing because my Applied Metabolics is completely commercial free. It has no ads. It's pure information. And most important of all, it's very useful and practical. Everything in that publication is useful, and you can apply to immediately to your daily existence. So, in other words, I'm not trying. I look at it as an extremely useful educational tool for people that want to have in-depth information about nutrition. Extremely useful information for, let's say, personal trainers who need to know more about the nuances of nutrition and exercise science. It's basically an excellent tool. So that's why I really and also I look at Applied Metabolics as an antidote to all the nonsense and bullshit that's on the internet today in the form of videos, blogs. A lot of it is just BS, just crap, or it's a lot of it's misinformation. So I promise you'll always get the truth, and it's 100% evidence-based in Applied Metabolics. www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, send me an email, and I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page. It's only open to current subscribers of Applied Metabolics, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, or general health. Very useful information. I also have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics website where current subscribers only can send me short questions about anything they might have read in Applied Metabolics or anything that they're curious about pertaining to nutrition and exercise. And as a appreciation of their subscription to Applied Metabolics, I will answer their questions. This only applies to current subscribers. www.appliedmetabolics.com. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. I still don't, no, I still don't have a dog, but I will get one, because I'll tell you, life is, trust me, I've had now, I think 5 dogs in the last 25 years, and life is a lot better when you have a friend like a dog that's 100% loyal, loves you with every single cell of their body, an unconditional love that's incomparable. Anyone who has a dog knows I'm telling the truth about this. It just can't be compared to any other even human relationship other than possibly, in most cases, your mother. And even there are times when even your mother isn't your best friend. It's unfortunately in certain pathogenic instances, hopefully not often, but I certainly wouldn't consider marriage or having a boyfriend or girlfriend to be your unconditional best friend, because there's conditions involved. I'm not saying they're bad, but there's always conditions involved in relationships, and you know that's the truth. Okay, take care. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.